Assalamu alaikum, everyone. So last Saturday, I was driving along with my daughters, and we were driving along the Lahore Ring Road, and suddenly we heard a bang, and the car started to shudder and shake. And so I thought, this is a burst tire. So I asked my daughter who was driving, I said, can you pull over to the side, which she actually did very safely. And I got out of the car and I saw that the tire was completely burst. In fact, we had actually managed to avert a very, possibly a dangerous accident. And I thought, my other daughter who was sitting in the back suddenly said to me, Mum, I'll ring Baba and he'll send somebody. And I said, no, let's change the tire ourselves. And they just looked at me and said, Mum, do you know how to even change a tire? And that got me thinking. That is it that we've become so limited and that we have to outsource these tasks and these problem-solving activities to other people? We just don't feel that we need to lean on anyone. We lean on ourselves in order to get the job done. So I learned how to change a tire. I learned how to drive in the UK, and that was part of the task that you had to learn because there was not going to be anybody, no Baba to come and help you. This was in the day before mobile phones. And so I just looked at my daughters and I said, well, these are the skills that you need to learn. And they go, well, we don't know. How are we supposed to know? And it got me thinking about the fact that the girls were not curious to learn how to change a tire, even though they've been driving for several years. So my experience is that I've been teaching for a long time, over 30 years, and I've seen every kind of iteration of education. So I've seen that very severe rote learning, where it's bang, 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 learn for the exam, and then I saw in the 80s where we had a very lovely time of creative learning and project-based learning, where students were really encouraged to explore and teachers were given this freedom to really encourage the children to think beyond the regular curriculum. But the problem with that was there was no standardization. There was no regulation and no way of knowing if all the students were coming from the same learning platform and be ready to give the exam. So then we had another change in the UK, and in that change, the national curriculum was introduced. And in that curriculum, everything was specified. So we knew exactly what skills the student had to learn, at what time, in what grade, and everybody came from a level playing field. And students were assessed at the ages of 7, and 11, and 14, and 16, so the equivalent perhaps now to the O-levels. And these were standardized national tests, and we were all geared towards that. But what did that do? That then stifled our curiosity, then the students' curiosity, because everybody was learning for the exam. And parents really got on board with this. This was a measurable outcome. This was going to be great. So they downloaded syllabuses. They enrolled tutors in their homes to come and teach their kids to prepare for the exam. And everybody was on board with this whole project of learning to pass for the exam. And that was great. And it sounded like a perfect formula, because if you passed the exams, you got into a great university. A great university meant that you got into a wonderful job, which meant job security and success, and therefore that leads to happiness. So it sounds perfect, a perfect formula, right? But the world changes. And this formula doesn't really accommodate the changing world. So this is seen no more clearly than it was in COVID, where we experienced the global pandemic, and this was a time where we really all had to think out of the box. This is when our curiosity muscle was really brought into play, and people had to reimagine the whole world. Meeting each other through Zoom. Teachers had to create classrooms on Zoom. Doctors had to define protocols at high speed, medical protocols. and businesses had to readjust to online platforms in order to sustain themselves. And this happened in a matter of days and weeks. So when it was forced upon us, the curiosity and the creativity really set in. And this is really what I wanted to talk to you about today, about how parents can reimagine school and university for their child's growth by nurturing the curiosity within their child, the inherent curiosity, which we tend to stifle. So, I was talking about the field of education, and I was talking about how education has changed over the years. But really, coming back to Pakistan, and since I've been working in Pakistan, I've seen that everything is about learning for the exam. And that is how success is measured. Because as I said, then you get into a great university. And in all my years of university advising and careers counseling, this is what parents wanted. They wanted that formula. What does my child need to get into Harvard, or to Yale, or LUMS, or UCL, or King Edward Medical College? What is that magic formula? And really, there is no magic formula, because it's all about building a profile, having all of these additional extracurricular activities as well, and being a great problem solver, and so on and so forth. But the grades are at the core, and so everyone focuses on the grades. If we study, if we get tutors, if we go to the academy in the evenings, then the child will be ready and will have the grades, and that will be their measure of success. But I think we need to break it down and go back a little bit, because now news reports are coming out, and I just read one in Education News very recently about how employers are saying we get amazing graduates who come to us, and they come to us with stellar grades, these great, wonderful profiles, and yet they don't have the ability to solve problems. They don't have the ability to collaborate and communicate, because they're so used to having a set formula by which they have passed their exams. Likewise, in universities are now saying, and surveys have shown, that students more than ever before are arriving at university with limited diplomacy skills, collaboration skills, problem-solving skills. Yes, they come with an amazing profile. They were head of the debate team. They were part of the varsity basketball team. They've written a research paper, but do they have these other soft skills? And are they essentially curious? Can they solve problems? So what's the solution then? It's all about us rethinking our mindset and working with schools and collaborating in order to create a new paradigm. And parents really need to emphasize this at home, and they really need to take the screens away from their children and start engaging with them and start taking them out and exploring the world outside. It's okay to go out into the garden. It's okay to go to a park. It's okay to go to the safari park. It's okay to get a bit dirty, to get your hands dirty, to feel things. Because now we only look at nature either on a screen or through the car window. And even then, we're kind of very apprehensive about it and keep it at arm's length. We're not really interested. What else can we do? We can do collaborative things like cooking with our kids and gardening with them, and sitting down and watching a documentary, having a discussion about something that went on at school, or something that they've seen has recently come up in the news, about the political climate perhaps. Watch a documentary about, I don't know, global warming, and then devise questions and come up with perhaps solutions for some of these issues. The kids will get it wrong, of course they will initially, but this will train that curiosity muscle. And with that, the students will go off to university a little bit more ready. I'm not saying grades are not important. Yes, they are. And they're important because the university stipulates that as part of their entrance criteria. But what I'm saying is if they go to university, our kids go to university just that little bit more curious, just that little bit more tolerant of discomfort, and not having all the answers, it will make for a much, much more successful future for them. And they will not necessarily need to go into then those standard, stereotypical, traditional careers like medicine and like engineering, or more recently now like AI, becoming an AI specialist, but they can explore further, and there are so many careers. So just to end, this collaboration and this parental involvement is essential for this. Students and parents need to be mindful of this and be proactive about training that curiosity muscle. And maybe it will start with solving a problem like fixing a flat tire. Thank you very much.